David Lewis Rubongoya gwe tuli naye olwaleero ono ye General Secretary ow'ekibiina kya National Platform. Tugenda kwogera ku bintu ebyenjawulo ebigenda maaso mu ggwanga Uganda ku kibiina kya National Platform, babaka ba National Platform mu Parliament, ku banna ba National Platform abawambibwa mu 7 abattibwa abakulu baako ebikolobero n'enteekateeka z'ekibiina kino okulaba nga tujja General Museveni Yoweri Kaguta mu ntebe nga tubanja obuwanguzi bwaffe. Tugenda kuba tukikola tutya byonna tugenda okwogerako olunaku lwa ne General Secretary David Lewis Rubongoya. Katutandike ebigambo naawe omwewulireko mu kamwa ke ng'abyogera.
Can hear you well, sir.
Okay, I'm glad that. A very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to every one of you, wherever you are. My name is David Lewis Rubongoya. I'm sure many of you know me, and I'm very delighted to see many of you who we've not spoken for some bit of time. David, I'm glad to see you, Docus, and everybody. I want to, first of all, appreciate you, comrades, for the great work that you do. And to see that we started with a prayer is amazing. The Bible says that the fire must be kept burning on the altar. It must not run out. So I'm very glad that the fire has been kept burning, that no matter what happens, you comrades meet regularly and, sharpen each other and educate each other and speak to each other on different things. Of course, every once in a while, I'm able to join in and sometimes I'm not, but I'm glad that this work has continued to happen. Uganda is bleeding. And I'm sure when Museveni finally falls, which he will, this cause, these trainings, these calls that comrades do will definitely be part of, the reasons which people will be giving for the fall of the dictators. We all know persistence breaks resistance. So let's continue fighting. Let's continue working very hard. Let everybody do whatever they can do from wherever they are. I always say that the struggle is like what we are pushing is like an elephant. Everybody must hold it from whichever angle, as long as we are all pushing in the same direction so that this elephant falls. We have a dictatorship that has been in power for close to 4 decades now, which has permeated every section of our society, which has killed all state institutions, which has destroyed the fabric of our society, the morals, everything. You find that in our country now, corruption, dishonesty are a way of life. You cannot, even when a traffic person stops you, you just automatically know they want lunch, they want some 20,000 or 50,000. You don't even wait for them to ask you where is this or that. They've stopped you because they want some money from you. So our country has gone through a lot of suffering, and that's why, indeed, this call is always titled Uganda is Bleeding, because indeed Uganda is bleeding. We have missing people, and we also what happened this week when the minister went to Parliament and tried to cover up, tried to justify crimes against humanity, claiming that Frank Senteza, our comrade, fell off a moving truck, and that's how he died. Trying to cover up the fact that Rita Nabukenya was murdered, and trying to cover up about the 18 people who were abducted in 2019, 2020, and 2021, claiming that some of those people, have been having, that they are either in the diaspora or that, they even went as far as saying that when Nabanja talked about Chibaramai, he was referring to the founder of NUP and that kind of thing. So Uganda is bleeding indeed, but we thank God for the milestones we've been able to reach, the persistence, the consistency of many of you comrades. And, I believe that eventually we shall overcome and we shall succeed. I also want to appreciate those of you who are in the UK who received our president and the first lady with a lot of love. And of course, like you mentioned in the prayer, we thank God that our president is now able to travel to the UK and all over the world. So that's a very, very important milestone. Since this is more or less an academy where we come to share, exchange ideas and all that, I thought I should, again, talk about why are we involved in this cause, but looking strictly on the line of constitutionalism, the constitution and constitutionalism. You comrades know that you know, as Martin Luther King said at one point during the civil rights movement, he said that, you know, he wouldn't mind what they were struggling for. He wouldn't mind if it was China or whichever country which did not have a Bill of Rights. And then he kept saying, but somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly, somewhere I read. So he was referring to the Constitution of the United States of America and the attendant rights which people ought to enjoy. And that is why, even for us in Uganda, we fight because we have a constitution which has been mutilated, definitely, which has been violated so many times, but it still has a Bill of Rights. So as we all know, we have a constitution of 1995, which has a Bill of Rights. Chapter 4 is about human rights. And if you read chapter 4, it provides for the basic human rights that citizens should enjoy. And that gives us a basis for struggle. When we are talking to General Museveni, his son, and other criminals about the crimes against humanity and all that, we are not just speaking out in a void. We are not just speaking out of madness or whatever. We are quoting the Constitution of Uganda. We are saying that, look, there are, you know, a constitution is like a contract between the citizens and the government. So we keep saying that, look, there is a constitution, there is a contract between ourselves, which says, for example, if you look at the Bill of Rights, talks about the right to life, but most importantly begins with a very, very important provision that human rights are inherent. They are not granted by the state. So it is not up to the government to give us these rights. These rights are inherent. We are born with them. Once you are born into this world, you should be enjoying certain human rights, basic rights. And that is reflected also in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948 and many other documents, both international, regional, and national at the national level. So, comrades, when we say we are fighting against these abductions, there are provisions which back us to that end. When we talk about freedom, for example, if you read Article 23 of our Constitution, I'm going to be opening it in a short while, to look at that particular article, Article 23 of the 1995 Constitution, and looking at Article 28 as well. Hello?
Yes, hi.
Yes, we had lost you, but you are back.
Yeah, the president was calling me out to tell him that I'm with the comrades on Uganda is bleeding. So, so comrades, like I was trying to say, we are fighting based on the provisions which are in the Constitution of Uganda and other laws. You know, Uganda has actually ratified many of these regional and international instruments. If you see, Uganda has ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which provides for all these rights that we're always fighting for, the freedom to vote and for your vote to count and to be counted. You know, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of expression, an ability for people to assemble and to do all sorts of things. So we also have ratified the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which provides for many of those rights which are absent in Uganda, including the freedom, the right to education. Our people must have quality education, including talking about healthcare and many other aspects that are absent in our country. So, but I want to also, before I go further, to say that, you know, many people and regimes like Museveni's and others, and all dictatorial regimes, usually love to talk about documents and policies. And many people have been asking us, what are your policies? And we always tell them that, look, the most important problem in our country are not policies. It is implementation of those policies. Uganda has some of the best policies if you look at them. I mean, one time our president said that even if you were to implement the 10-point program, which the NRA came with, you would have a good country. And I think he was very right. The problem is not with the 10-point program. The problem is that it was violated because indeed the very first point in that program was restoration of democracy, which they violated. So if you were to apply to implement the policies that we have in place, there are very many good policies. Some people have been talking about having electoral reforms before the next election. And we've been telling them that, look, the problem of Uganda are not bad laws. The problem of Uganda is not having, laws in place about elections. The problem is that even the laws that we have are violated with impunity. The laws in Uganda, for example, tell you not to have guns at any polling station. But you all know what happens. They bring guns. Let's just quickly look at this Article 23 that I was talking about. Article 3 is about promotion of fundamental and other rights, but specifically about the protection of personal liberty. And if you look at that particular provision of the Constitution, it gives you several guarantees. It says, for example, that, one, and which I think is the most important aspect here, Clause 1, no person shall be deprived of personal liberty except in the following circumstances. In execution of a sentence or order of a court, mark the word court, in execution of an order of court, you can see also that. Number C, for purpose of bringing that person before a court in execution of an order. Now, if you look at those first three clauses, they talk about, it is basically telling you that if you arrest somebody, the person must be taken to court. And of course, there are other things like if you're preventing the spread of a disease, for purposes of education, welfare of that person, if the person is below 18 years of age, if the person is of unsound mind, for protection of the community and guaranteeing their health, etc., etc. Now, this Clause 2 says that a person arrested, restricted, or detained shall be kept in a place authorized by law. That's what the Constitution of Uganda says. But as you all know, our people, majority of the NUP supporters, are just kept in places which are not gazetted by law. You hear somebody is picked up and then taken to CMI. And you ask them, when did CMI become a detention center authorized by law? But because they are operating with impunity, because they don't respect the law, because there's no spirit of constitutionalism in the country, that is why they are able to do things with impunity. So that's why I wanted to draw the distinction between having a constitution and constitutionalism. Many people assume wrongly that once you have many laws, many good laws, then you have solved the problem. No. As you all know, the country that some of you live in, the UK, has an unwritten constitution. The constitution of the UK is one of those which is not written. But there is constitutionalism. There have been many bills written over time that have been codified over time, which guide society. So the point is not having a good constitution which guarantees these fundamentals. The most important thing is constitutionalism, and that is what we are fighting for. Constitutionalism makes sure the key tenets of constitutionalism are: one, supremacy of the Constitution, that the Constitution, whether written or unwritten, must be supreme. And if you read Article 2 of our Constitution, it also provides for that the Constitution is supreme. It is not Museveni, it is not the president, whoever it may be, or it is not the military. The Constitution has supremacy over all other laws, practices, and customs. And you also go into other things like, the different ways in which they exercise a lot of impunity against our people. So that is why I was trying to explain to some of you. Of course, many of you are not lawyers, and I'm just trying to make this important point that you can have a good constitution, but if you don't have constitutionalism, you have lost the plot. That is why we when in Parliament they were talking about let's have electoral reforms and all that. We said, look, the most important issue are not the reforms, because even the basics of an election are one person, one vote. In Uganda, you know what happens? These people come with a person is given, boxes of votes, of ballot papers to go and throw in favor of Museveni. The military comes and takes over voting at polling stations. We've seen this in by-elections and in general elections, etc., etc. So it is very important comrades to understand that our fight in Uganda is for there to be constitutionalism. The other tenet, of course, is independence of the judiciary. That's very important as well. But one other important thing is equality before and under the law. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades in the struggle, one of the reasons we are fighting against this regime in Uganda is because there is no equality before and under the law. Equality before the law means that when you, for example, go to court, if I have a case against any other person, we all should be treated equally before the law. You know, that's the statue of justice of a woman who is blindfolded. It is because justice should be blind. It should not look at who is before it, whether it is a military officer or a civilian or whatever. Every single person should be equal before the law. And when we say under the law, we mean that all citizens in the country should be under the law. No one should say that, you know, this idea in Uganda of orders from above. You know, someone commits a crime and or comes to you and to say they are blocking your meeting, and then you ask them, what law are you quoting? They say these are orders from above. And these security officers love to use that kind of word. And you ask them, who is above? Because the law should be above everything else. So, comrades, we are fighting to restore constitutionalism and the rule of law. Because once you do that, then everybody has a fair chance. Everyone can be heard in a court of law. Everyone can have a chance to defend themselves, etc. Now, Clause 3 of Article 23 of our Constitution says that a person arrested, restricted, or detained shall be informed immediately in a language he or she understands of the reasons for the arrest and his or her right to a lawyer of his or her choice. So this is one of those rights which has been taken away. You know, people come and pick you up. They don't tell you why you're being taken. They don't even mention that you're under arrest. They just bundle you into a van and take you away because of the word called impunity that we have in our country. Because of time, I want to quickly go through this. A person arrested or detained for purpose of bringing him or her before a court or upon reasonable suspicion that he has committed an offense or about to commit an offense shall, if not earlier released, be brought to court as soon as possible, but in any case not later than 48 hours from the time of his or her arrest. So you can imagine, this is what it is very, very important for us to understand, so that when we are making demands to this criminal regime, when we are talking about John Bosco Chibalama, when we are talking about John Damulira, when we are talking about the disappearance of Chilia Peter, when we talk about the disappearance of Joseph Baguma, and all the others that you know. And of course, like we've been saying, it's not just 18 people that have since disappeared. There are many more. In fact, these 2 past days, I received 2 people coming to report. There are people who are taken away. You know, many of them are just Muslims who are picked up and taken away, and they are suspected of belonging to ADF without any iota of evidence. About 4 days ago, I was also meeting a young man from Iganga who had spent 3 months in detention in a place not gazetted by law, being subjected to torture and other forms of inhuman treatment. And what he told me was that, you know, this profiling, that if you're a Muslim or if you come from a particular area, you are either belonging to NUP, which they have quote unquote turned into a crime of sorts. One of our coordinators from West Nile was picked up again yesterday because he's suspected of recruiting rebels apparently. And yet what he had gone to do there was to register people who are interested in running under NUP for LC1 elections and those kinds of things. So that is why we have to fight, because somewhere we read our constitution, even when it has been mutilated, like I said, even when many good provisions have been taken away, there are things which are still there in that constitution, which provide for the basics of human rights that must be respected. If you go on to read, for example, under that very article, it says that where a person is restricted or detained, the next of kin of that person must be informed as soon as practicable. 2, the lawyer and personal doctor and next of kin shall be allowed reasonable access to that person. A person shall be allowed to access medical treatment. Now, we all know what has been happening to our people. You saw the other day how Honorable Segini and Honorable Sewanya were in prison. They tried to access medical treatment. They were blocked until, of course, they were eventually released on bail, especially when the condition of Honorable Segini became worse and worse, and even Honorable Sewanya was sick. We always talk about incommunicado detentions in Uganda. Incommunicado detentions mean where someone is taken away, and nobody except those who have taken him or her away are aware of where this person is. So many of our people are taken into incommunicado detentions. You remember that after elections, we had over 5,000 people languishing in different prisons and known places. And, you know, some of them were later on dumped somewhere in swamps, in forests, along the roads, etc., etc. So that is why we have a challenge in Uganda. And of course, like I said, comrades, it's not just about the laws, but about the practice, about constitutionalism. Now, one of the challenges we have in Uganda is that you have a good constitution, but the people who should be implementing it are also under capture. It is the judiciary which should be implementing or ensuring that if any law is violated in this constitution, that then someone has a right to go to court and be heard. But what we have in Uganda now is that the courts are under capture. You have all been following what has happened to Justice Esther Chisache, who decided the presidential election petition in favor of our candidate, our president, Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. And since then, you all know what has happened to her, to a point that she recently tried to retire from the judiciary, and General Museveni has blocked her retirement because they want to persecute her. You know that the courts are very incompetent. That's why civilians in Uganda are tried in military courts. You know, you can imagine a young lady like Olivia Altaya, a mother of two, being tried in a military of court. She's a civilian. Machete and many others who have spent over 3 years in detention now at Kitalia because of belonging to NUP. You can imagine. So if you don't have a justice system, when you don't have courts, when courts are not independent, then that's a problem you have. And of course, that's one of the challenges of our constitution. Remember that the people who made the 1995 constitution presupposed that there were going to be term limits. So you remember the initial constitution of 1995, we had term limits. In other words, they believed that one president would come in and appoint certain judges. After then, that president goes and another one will come and appoint other judges. Because even in the US, as you all know, judges are appointed by the president and of course confirmed by Congress, etc., etc. That is the same situation in Uganda. Judges appointed by the president, approved by the parliament. But one of the challenges you have now is that all courts, right from the High Court to the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, all judges in Uganda have been appointed by one person, that is General Museveni. And of course, he has punished heavily those who have gone against him. You all remember what happened to Justice Katusi, who decided the case in favor of Dr. Besigye. You all remember what has been happening to many judges who have stood their ground. They have been denied promotions, they've been denied amenities, you know, like Justice Chisache, that's a recent example. Her amenities have been withdrawn illegally. You know, at some point she was complaining that her salary was not being paid and allowances and all that kind of thing. So that is the kind of oppression we are fighting against, because this kind of regime is trying to force every single citizen into submission. So that is why they have all these security agencies. You know, General Museveni, like all dictators, try to create so many centers of power within security establishments to avoid even possibilities of coups and that kind of thing. So you have CMI, you have crime intelligence, you have SFC, you have the regular police, which also has all sorts of units. You have JAT, Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force, you have the anti-stock unit, you have prisons, of course, also having its own units, etc. And then you go to the military and see the different units that have been created. Very many of them, sometimes some of them you can't even know until You meet somebody and then you see their badge reading something all of a sudden. So that is the kind of situation we have in Uganda. So to summarize as I conclude, we have no constitutionalism. You have a constitution, which although it has some good provisions are not respected by those in power. Then you have them not, of course, respecting the tenets that I told you about, that the law in Uganda is seen as a means for General Museveni to entrench him further. So when the law favors him, he quotes the law, you know, and you've always seen him come on TV to say, oh, there are laws. They love so much to quote the laws. But when the laws stand in their way to hold on to power, or when the laws stand in their way to violating human rights with impunity, then they throw them under the bus and try to cling to power by all means necessary. So I appreciate you, and I will be glad to take questions, if any. I thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Louis Rubongoya, for that very insightful presentation about constitution, about our constitution and constitutionalism. Let me just agree with you that yes, there is a big discrepancy between between the constitution and constitutionalism. That is praxis. Of course, the dictator has done this by design. He has created an illusion or a semblance of democracy by creating all these pseudo institutions that are supposed to hoodwink, first of all, the international community to project an image of a democrat and functioning institutions. But it's far from that. And again, I think let me underscore the importance of, or rather the supremacy of the Constitution. That is why members of parliament must owe allegiance to the Constitution, and they must defend it at all costs. So should the members of the defense forces, that is the UPDF, the police, they should owe their allegiance to the Constitution, not to Museveni. It is the Constitution that must always be defended and not Museveni. What we are saying, however, is Museveni creating all these pseudo institutions so that he entrenches himself. But this has not happened in a vacuum. This has been happening over a period of time. So the corrosion of these institutions goes way back in the 60s, in the 70s. And that is why, if I can just mention some of the most horrendous human rights violations. For example, the Mbarara Muslim bloodbath massacre. We have the Luero Triangle massacre. We have the Atiak massacre. We have the Kayunga massacre, and many, many others. So this has been happening. It's not any wonder that when when the government was called upon to account for the missing victims, they came up with this spin. So they invited a spin doctor really to give us a report that is despicable, that does not in any way do justice, that does not in any way do justice to the people who have disappeared or people who have been killed. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really just wanted to say that. But again, this is your day. Please come forward and ask questions or contribute with your own. Sorry. Yes. Come on.
It's okay. Yes, it's okay, Joe. Yes. Yes, David.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Comrade Joe. Thank you so much for that great input and supplement. And thank you so much, Comrade David Lewis, for that wonderful, wonderful submission. So this is how it's going to happen, just the way we do it. Please raise up hands, and you each have just a minute, because Comrade David Lewis for people who have questions, because we usually have questions and we want to touch base with Secretariat. We want to know what's happening. We want to know how we as people in the diaspora and comrades can be able to be of help. So let's just target the questions, and you each have a minute, please, so that we can accommodate and take as many people as we can in the next few minutes that he has with us, because he doesn't have so much time with us. So I'm going to choose, and please just use your minute and give someone else an opportunity while Comrade David Lewis is still here. So I'll begin with you, Mr. Comrade James William. You put your hand up first. Please, 1 minute. We go to the next person, and that's the way we're going to do it, to be able to utilize time with him. Okay, yes, Comrade James William again.
Well, mine is just an observation and maybe an addition to what the Secretary General has said. He mentions about constitutionalism, and we are in the thicket of campaign in the United States. Yesterday, I was with one of the candidates in his caucusing, and he starts by giving a copy of the Constitution to the listeners, to the people who are seated, and asks the people from the crowd. He asks anyone if there's any article of the Constitution that he feels has been breached by him, by the candidate. Before he can speak, he wants a candidate to raise up the hand and talk about the Constitution, where he feels you are wrong here. And if there's nobody to raise up a hand, then he starts speaking. So the defense of the Constitution is what we're talking about here. I think most of our legislatures and whatever don't know about the Constitution. Even our own, even Museveni, I was going to say even our own president, even Museveni, because you defend the Constitution, you sign to defend the Constitution. So I was very impressed by the presidential candidate in the United States yesterday, who started off by, is there anything in the Constitution that you know that I have breached? He asked us, and there was nobody to raise up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade James. That's a very good supplement, and we are also going to see how we can translate. I think translations are there, and supply our people with articles and with the Constitution. Comrade Mimi, we want to take at least three comments or questions, and then he will respond. Comrade Mimi Buki.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Mr. Rubongoya. We thank you for the work you're doing. But mine is about training the foot soldiers. I know you stood up and said that the Kamocha Center will be used for training. Mr. Rubongoya, we need our foot soldiers to be trained so that they can understand the Constitution, that they can understand the party Constitution, so that they can understand why they are in this struggle, and not to say that they don't know why they are in this struggle. They need to be grounded. That's why we are having people tomorrow, they are in NUP, tomorrow they are back in NRM. We need to brainwash them so that they understand why they are in the struggle. They need to know the Constitution. They need to know exactly human rights. All these centers you guys are setting up, there has to be training of our foot soldiers. As you people canvass the whole world, please ask for scholarship for our foot soldiers. If it's an online course, it's something so that these kids can be trained, and trained also to self-defense. Self-defense does not mean guns. It means self-defending themselves against people who come and attack them on like campaigns on whatever. They need to be trained. Please let us use these times to train our foot soldiers because these are the foot soldiers who are going to go to the grassroots. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Comrade Mimi, for that wonderful, wonderful strategy and idea. It's good you at last rectified the language and said, let us. We should use the us language rather than you there, because the Secretariat needs us so much more, like in the same way we need them. They can't work without us. Thank you so much. That was a very good strategy. Mr. Tamale. Mr. Tamale, you have your minute. You raised up your hand. For those of you who have already submitted, please lower your hands. If I call you and I can't get you, then we will go to Mr. Ismail. Comrade Ismail, you raised.
Thank you very much for giving me the mic. Hello to Secretary General. My question is to do with the young population. Given that we have the youngest population in the country, basically in Africa, if not in the world, what's NUP's plan for the young youth? What's a plan to engage them and also to address their needs? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Comrade David, do you want to first respond to those or you want us to take a few more, three? Or you want to chip in before you forget those? Do you want to come in, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm happy to get all the questions and maybe respond at once if that's better, or I can even just respond to the ones which have been asked.
Okay, let's take some more, three, and then you can respond. Yeah, I know you're noting down. Okay, let's take some more, sir.
All right.
So thank you so much, Mr. Ismail, for that question. We have Madways. Madways. Please be near your gadgets. If we call you, we have many hands. If we call you and you can't respond, we'll go to the next person. Okay, Comrade Frank. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Go on.
Thank you, Mr. David. Greetings to everyone. My question to the Secretary General is about the report read by Mr. David Mohoz. What is the way forward after the report? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Madways. You didn't tell us what was in the report, but I hope maybe Comrade David Lewis might know something, but you would have hinted something at least, but it is so vague. The report might be big, but Comrade David might.
Sorry, I think it's about the missing persons.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to Comrade Robert. Your question or comment in your minute, 1 minute. Comrade Robert, you raised your hand.
Yes, just unmuting. Hey, thanks guys for this wonderful meeting, and thanks SG for the contribution and the update you've just given us. So mine is more or less as a suggestion or recommendation to do with this constitution. I mean, we've been talking a lot about translation, how we could really translate these to our local populace. How far have we put this in action? We need an action plan. Who is doing this? Can we task certain experts or volunteers from different regions in Uganda to get down to work to see that we can get this translated in our local language? So it's been a lot of talk without anything effective. I think we really need to be very, very, very goal-oriented. So yeah. So my question to SG is this something the Secretary is looking into, and do we have any manpower to get to work? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Comrade, and we'll right away go to Comrade Marie. Gender balance here. We want to take some ladies before Comrade David Lewis comes in to respond to your question. Comrade Marie, where are you from? And please speak to us or ask your question or comment.
Thank you so much. I'm from Switzerland. Oh,
nice to hear from you.
I'm from Switzerland. I'm the coordinator in Switzerland. I came late. I'm sorry because I had an emergency. I missed the submission for the SG. But however, I heard about the foot soldier training. that I think is in Uganda. But even here in the diaspora, we need this because there are so many troubles that is, I mean, if they train foot soldiers should be, I think, worldwide, we need that too. There's a lot of trouble that is so impossible to solve. For example, here in Switzerland, I'm happy that we have a new team leader, and I'm very grateful for that, to work with him. But like, for example, Switzerland, we still have a lot of trouble to solve. I wish that Secretary General once should be invited to Swiss chapter. This is maybe one of the solution to hear what is happening and to try to help us to solve the trouble we are having. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Comrade Marie. Thank you so much for that great submission and question. And yes, Comrade David, you have the microphone. Comrade David, we know you are running out of time and we want you to respond to those. If you still have some more minutes, then we will take some more. But you can first respond to those for the interest of your time.
All right, thank you very much for the questions and the comments, and certainly the suggestions that have come through. I think that the comrade who spoke first was talking about, you know, a candidate in the US distributing copies of the Constitution. It's very, very interesting, and I think one of the problems, of course, which the dictatorship has done in Uganda is to discourage the culture of reading, and dictators all over the world prefer to keep people in ignorance. So our Constitution clearly stipulates for translation. It says that it actually makes it mandatory for the Constitution to be taught in schools and that kind of thing. But I think we all understand why a regime like the current the one that we have in Uganda would really not do that, because they know that once people's eyes are opened, once people understand their rights, then they will start asking questions. My earliest political awakening came from my classes of political education. But as you all know, political education was later banned in schools, so it's no longer taught. Because these dictators try so hard to make sure that citizens are really kept in the dark. You know, initially we even had civic education, which they also banned. And so I think it has been a deliberate ploy to ensure that Ugandans do not know the Constitution, and you know, therefore they don't know their rights, and there are so many other challenges. Because I believe if every citizen understood what I just read about Article 23, about what should happen when they are being arrested, then you would see many people asking questions. Where are you taking me? Why are you taking me? Who has sent you to arrest me? Because now what you have is just every security person, because they have a gun, thinking that they have power over citizens. And I think I can respond to that together with the other question about translating the Constitution, and I think that was from Robert. I think for me, if it were, first of all, of course, I understand the challenges of resources, but if you comrades can just translate, you know, the Bill of Rights, so that you understand their rights, that's chapter 4 of the Constitution. Maybe that can be a good beginning point, because the mandate of translating the Constitution formally lies with the Law Reform Commission. At some point, I had them say they had translated it into 2 other languages. There was even a court case trying to compel them to, you know, make sure that the Constitution is translated and all that. But of course, like I said, this is not the priority of Museveni's government. If it was, it would have been done long ago. But now they don't do it because it's not in their best interest. Once the citizens are aware of their rights, then General Museveni will not be in power and his system, because they violate that Constitution every single day. There was a question I saw in the comments about habeas corpus orders for missing persons. Yes, habeas corpus means basically the order you get from court commanding the state to produce someone either before court or release them. And we have applied for several of them, but habeas corpus is given to you where you are able to prove that the state picked this person. I hope we're all together. So in the case of Damlila, for example, John Damlila, we got a habeas corpus order because he was taken together with his son. And so there was that, there was an affidavit proving that. That same thing happened for Kanata Muhammad, for Semudu Michael, and others. But there are those cases where the state came out and said, not at all, we don't have this person, and that kind of thing. And of course, the courts, which I already described earlier, many of the judges or magistrates are really compromised. They don't really understand what is meant to be done in the context of Uganda. And so that is why you find that some of them, we don't have habeas corpus orders. However, the other day I was checking with our lawyers, and they told me that we've gotten 45 habeas corpus orders for now. And many of those people have, of course, been released after 3 months, 4 months, who we've been able to get habeas corpus orders for. Because usually we file, and then as soon as you file this habeas corpus order on the state, then they get this person from the safe house, take them to Chileka, where they charge them with subversive activities and all those kinds of things. So I wanted to throw light on that issue as well. Of course, we need to streamline the laws, like I said, to ensure that people do not abuse the law. And that's what we're having in Uganda, that the security operatives abuse the law. And, under ideal circumstances, if someone admits that someone has been in detention for 3 months, then there should be consequences for these people who are committing these crimes. But that does not happen in our country, simply because all these things are done to aid the regime. The other question was about training foot soldiers. That's a very, very important thing that we have embarked on. Of course, as you all know, the party has so many competing interests. At every one point, you're dealing with so many things to do with local governments, to do with, of course, setting up these offices, activities, building what we've been building now, and many, many other things, election management, sometimes there are by-elections and all that. But we have a Department of Training and Leadership Development, and the works at Kamocha to try and improve that place so that we turn it into a school on. So we are going to have those trainings start. And of course, we shall also have elements of online teaching like this. But I also encourage you, when that time comes, you guys can be very, very helpful, because one of the reasons why some people, for example, drop off and join Museveni and all that is because they lack exposure. They've not been able to travel outside Uganda. They don't know how society should run, because all they have seen all their lives, I'm sure many of you have not seen any other president from the time you were born. So you can imagine that kind of challenge. So I think it's important that you comrades, with your exposure, people who are in the diaspora, can also impart some of this knowledge. I would want a foot soldier or a leader, a counselor, whatever, to hear that story that you're talking about. That look, in the US, someone can come with a constitution and say, if there is any provision that have violated, then I should be held to account, or I should not be voted into office, or something like that. Then the other question was about what is a plan for young people. NUP is about young people, and we try to, we have a youth wing, we have an institutions wing. We try to support young people and to really try to build their capacities to, identify and build potential and that kind of thing. Madways asked what is the way forward after the report. On Tuesday next week, the leader of the opposition and his team in parliament are going to table a formal response about these violations and clearly give details of how many of these things which David Mhozi was saying, of course, were absolute lies with no basis at all. And finally, my sister Mary from Switzerland also talked about training, but also talked about the issues with the Switzerland chapter. I'm happy to discuss that and to see when I could come to Switzerland and meet with your chapter. And we try to sort out whatever issues have been going on. The other time you saw us in Netherlands, where we came to try and resolve the issues in terms of leadership and all that. And we hope things can be better and can get better as we go along. Those are the questions, I think, for now. I don't know if there are any others or if I should say goodbye for now.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know if are you saying goodbye or do you still have 5 more minutes? Is that it?
I can have 5 more minutes, please.
Thank you so much. Comrades, as a tradition, we have a moment of silence. Maybe we'll have that after SG has gone. Yes, David, if you conclude with the other 2 hands. Just
Can I add something? Sorry.
50 seconds, please, and then, yes.
Secretary General, you see this this comrade here? I think you remember this guy, you actually met him yourself. Abraham Aboch, his father, he came to, do you remember him?
He's muted.
Of course I do. I remember him. I know his case.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Comrades, sorry, David, if you carry on and take, was it 2 hands left?
Yes, we had a few more hands, but I see them lowered. We can take a few, like 2 more hands, or if you have any more questions, and then we will leave minutes for our comrade David Lewis, our SG, to respond to those, and then we will release him and then carry on with the discussions and strategizing.
Talk of hands, I would like to acknowledge or recognize Dr. Nico. I don't know if he's gone now. He said he was going to speak to us. Okay, Nabuyanda, Honorable Nabuyanda, you had your hand up. I remember. You have 50 seconds. Please unmute and take the mic.
Yes, thank you so much, Dorcas. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can, and you can have your video on, please. I've sent you a request. Thank you.
No, I can't have my video on because I just woke up a few hours. I slept in the bus since it's my birthday. But the question I wanted to raise is that according to the presentation of the Right Honorable Secretary General, is that all of these things we are advocating for are clearly spelled down into the Constitution, but it is a practice by the regime in power to adamantly and deliberately disrespect the Constitution. And he further says that other institutions like the judiciary is actually compromised, which means that it can also not come in to check the failures of the other institutions of government. And according to a speech by the president in UK on BBC about a day ago, he said that some of the MPs in the opposition work with the dictator, which simply means that also parliament is infiltrated and compromised, which simply points at one thing, that the entire system is rotten. My question is, why don't we escalate or boost our investment into mass uprising to actually challenge the regime in power? Because all these fronts that we are talking about, it is an appreciation and a confession that has been made by all parties that the system is rotten. It's not going to give us the results we want. That's my question.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oops, sorry. Sorry. Sorry, David, you're muted. Okay, yes, I think we will not take any more questions. And for the sake of the tradition, we always, at the top of the hour, we always have a moment of silence. And then, yeah, so let's still do have this moment of silence, and then we'll hear from SG and, yes, apologies, comrade. Please mute.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, it's always sad to remember all those who have died, and I really want to appreciate you, comrades, for that constant reminder. I think that moment of silence is a constant reminder of the justifiability of our cause. Some people think we're just excited young people trying to, but there's a reason why we are fighting. And of course, we shall not stop until our country is free. Secondly, I want to wish a happy birthday to my brother Solomon Nabuyanda and appreciate him for the question he has asked. I think organizing a mass uprising is everyone's desire, and Article 3 of the Constitution actually gives us that power. It says that if any government or anybody for that matter violates or abrogates the constitution like we believe General Museveni has done, then those people have a right to use all means necessary to restore constitutional order, to restore the constitution, basically. So it is important. That's a challenge to all of us. We all know the challenges that have been there. You've seen the levels of violence. Every time any group, Nabuyanda, before he left Uganda, knows very well that every time him and many others tried to protest, they were always, arrested quickly. I remember he used to be calling me all the time about arrested people who he was always trying to follow up on, whether students and other people. So there are challenges why people haven't yet, but I believe it is our duty to use all means possible to first of all awaken them, empower them, and it begins with education, people understanding their power, to understand this concept of people power, to understand, because now General Museveni has tried to place the gun above the people, and it is our duty collectively to ensure that we speak to our people about the fact that people power is stronger than the people in power, people power is stronger than the guns. My last comment is just a word of hope. We started with a prayer, and I always give people, I always talk about hope. It might look as madness, what we do. We are up against a very big system with guns, with the international aid coming in every other time, with the military, with whatever. But I am always encouraged by people who have been able to bring down regimes that are even stronger than General Museveni's. So, some of you may disagree with former president of the US, Obama's policies and all that. But one of the quotes he said, which I always love to remember, is that even in the face of impossible odds, people who love their country can change it. And that is my conviction. I believe that we people who love our country, regardless of how many we are, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our religions, regardless of anything, people who love their country can change it, even in the face of impossible odds. Let's continue trusting God. Let's continue believing in ourselves while believing in God. Let's continue working hard. I believe a day will reach when we shall be coming on Zoom to celebrate and to strategize for the building of a new Uganda, because by that time, the struggle against General Museveni and his regime will be behind us, and we shall have the real struggle will begin then to try and fix our country. Just come, all of you have been seeing what is happening to Kampala. Almost every road you pass, there are potholes. You just can't imagine that you're in a capital city of a country. You go to hospitals, you look at public services, it's a crisis. But I believe that one day we shall wake up. I don't know what day it will be, but let's continue praying. Let's continue believing God. I believe that day will come, and together we shall be able to build a new Uganda. Thank you very much. May God bless you.
Thank you. We are really honored. Yes, David, Mr. Kirabra.
Thank you so much, Comrade Dorcas, for really mobilizing us and really spearheading this great campaign. Uganda is bleeding. And thank you so much, our dear beloved SG, Comrade David Lewis Rubongoya. We salute you and we appreciate the great leadership and work that you are doing. I know many of us who are working from afar cannot really know the intensity sometimes there is when you're on the front line. And many of us can be quick to judge and to ask questions and to do all that, but we should just join hands, as the message was. We should just join hands and be resilient and ask yourself every day, am I really doing enough to unseat the dictator? What is my contribution, and is it enough? Is it enough? What more can I do? Should be each and everyone's question every morning when you wake up. Yes, it's very good for us to come on Zoom and to demonstrate via online protests. But ask yourself that question every morning, every day. What more can I do? We have spoken about training. We can organize us even in the diaspora and welcome SG and the team, and where we need help, and train our people, the foot soldiers. We train ourselves, just like Comrade Dorcas has organized and mobilized us. Many of us, we can do in different chapters in different nations and set up workshops, and a lot of, it's going to take a lot of activity, not from just the Secretariat, not from just SG, not from just a handful of people, but from thousands of us. So the task ahead is really great, but with the help of God, and if we are united with one cause and one purpose, not considering, not being distracted by trivial issues, let's stay our eyes on the prize, on the big goal, not on trivial issues like the tribalism card, all those kinds of things. Those are very trivial issues when we talk about human rights, like petty things, like there are many petty things that we have allowed ourselves to be diverted with. But thank you so much, Comrade David Lewis, for that great encouragement. And yeah, let's keep the fire burning. And I just want to appreciate you so much, everyone, for your contributions and your questions.
You are muted, Comrade. You're muted. You thanking everyone.
I wanted to carry on, and thank you so much. I'm going to be in the background listening in, but we want more participation. People who still have hands and contributions can feel free to take us on. I'll mute myself and put off my video, but I'll be listening in. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Byebyo David Lewis Rubongoya Secretary General w'ekibiina kya National Platform, ebigamba bitugambye nga byonna bwabitugebuulidde, enteekateeka ennungi enkulu ez'okulaba nga tutereeza ekibiina kyaffe ekya National Unity Platform. Tulina kunywerera wamu, tulina kusigala nga tuli kimu, era tulina kulwana nnyo n'okumanya nti obuvunaanyizibwa bwaffe nze naawe teri mulala okuggyako ffe abaana ba leero ab'omulembe guno. Ffe tuteekeddwa okwetaasa okulwana ennyo okulaba nga tutereeza ensi yaffe, ate nga tujja kukikola singa tunaaba ffenna nga tussa kimu, era nitugamba nti ekimala kimala, ne twekyanga, ne twekyawa, ne tumenka, ne twekalakaasa. Kino Museveni ajja kuba nga asigadde mu byafaayo ng'anyumiza ayogerwako bwogerwa nti nno yaliwo. Kale mbaagala nnyo, byebyo tujja kuba tuddamu twogera ebigambo. Omukama nsaba bankuumire. Mwera.